Hi everybody, this video is being pre-recorded on September 11th to be recorded on September 22nd at 4:30 p.m. Good evening. This video is supplemental content for our entertainment comparisons video on September 22nd, in which we discuss the Cougar Town and Friends finales and the Daisy Jones and the Six TV show. So in today's video, I am going to be doing my final wrap-up of Cougar Town, because in the video that's on Matt's channel, we just talk about the finale and seasons 4 through 6 episodes that we liked and disliked. But in this video, I'm going to be just sharing final thoughts of the show as a whole. And I'm also going to be talking about tier ranking Backlist books in Reese's book club book list. Part 2 of this tier ranking will be in my November wrap-up, where I review all of Reese's book club picks for this year. Because as of right now, the only Reese's book club pick I have read for 2024 is The Most Fun We Ever Had, which I gave 3.5 stars to on Goodreads. I DNF'd it because I had trouble following the plots of all of the characters, but I think I'm going to reread it because when Gabby Reeds reviewed it, she said that it was a modern interpretation of Little Women, and I could definitely see where she was coming from about that. So I am planning to reread The Most Fun We Ever Had, and hopefully my rating of it will change once I reread it and finish it. And hopefully it will go up in rating from 3.5 to 4 or 4.5, but we shall see. So first, to begin with the Cougar Town, final thoughts on Cougar Town. First of all, in our cumulative rating that we did of media with Friends actors in them, that the actors were in after Friends, Cougar Town rated 3rd place, following The Odd Couple with Matthew Perry, the show from 2015, and Episodes with Matt LeBlanc that was on from 2014 to 2017. Technically, Cougar Town can't really be considered a spin-off to Friends, and the only reason I kind of considered it as a spin-off was because of the fact that Courtney Cox plays the main character, and throughout the seasons, Lisa Kudrow, Jennifer Aniston, and Matthew Perry guest starred in episodes in seasons 1, 2, and 5, respectively. But overall, Cougar Town cannot really be considered a spin-off to Friends, because while some plot lines from Cougar Town are similar to Friends, for the most part, it's a show that can stand alone as its own standalone show. The serious issues of substance use disorder was treated with equal disrespect as it was in Friends season 2, episode 10, The One with Russ. What makes it worse by comparison? Well, actually, I don't know. I guess it can be on equal playing field, because, so as I have said in previous videos, in season 2, episode 10 of Friends, The One with Russ, Monica is dating this guy, Fun Bobby, everybody else calls him Fun Bobby, basically because he is fun when he drinks. When he is sober, he goes on a 10-minute rant about how all hardware store in the village are closed after 2 a.m. And then after he leaves Central Park, Chandler refers to him as ridiculously dull Bobby. This plotline of Friends would have not worked today due to Matthew Perry's issues with substance use disorder. And I really don't think that substance use disorder was handled very well in Cougar Town either, because basically all Jules and Bobby and their friends do is drink wine. And when Travis calls them out about it at the beginning of season 4, episode 1, Blue Sunday, it's never talked about again after that. And I personally feel like that's one issue that Jules neglected to talk about in therapy. The other one that she neglected to talk about was her clinginess towards Travis, which I will get into in a moment. Speaking of therapists, I feel like Jules needed more professional therapists. We see her interaction with her therapist in 2 separate episodes. The episode where Jennifer Aniston guest stars at the beginning of season 2, she plays a therapist called Glenn, and basically she handles herself very unprofessional after Jules gets into an accident with her. She should have handled it better. And with season 4, episode 10, Lie to Me, at this point, Jules has a different therapist. Her name is Lynn, and she is played by Nicole Sullivan. And basically, in this episode, Lynn tries to insert herself into Jules's friend group because she has no friends outside of work. I just found that to be unprofessional for her to do, because she could have found a group of friends from her office instead of trying to be friends with one of her patients. That just came off as strange and very awkward for me to watch, because she was trying to force her relationship with Jules outside of work. One thing I really enjoyed about Cougar Town was how Jules's relationship with her dad was highlighted in more episodes, because in Friends, we only see a couple of episodes where Monica's relationship with her dad, Jack, is highlighted. One is in season 1, the one where the grandmother passes away, and he's talking to Monica after the funeral about how he wants to be buried at sea. And then the other one was when Monica breaks up with Richard at the beginning of season 3, and he comes to check in on her after the breakup. And then another brief glimpse you see of the father-daughter relationship is the one when they're at the birthday party and Jack and Judy find out about Monica dating Richard. I forget which episode that is. In Cougar Town, Jules's relationship with her father is definitely more fleshed out and is featured in more episodes. One thing that's incredibly interesting is that in season 2, episode 6, You Don't Know How It Feels, it is alluded to that Jules's mother passed away when she was younger, but then that is never really talked about again. After that, I would have liked a little bit more detail about what the family dynamic was like when Jules was younger. And did the mother die of cancer? Did she die in childbirth with the second child? Because Jules has a younger brother who is mentioned in a few episodes, but we never actually really see him at all throughout the show. So it would have been nice if in the flashback episode Flirting with Time, we had seen not just flashbacks of Bobby and Jules moving into the neighborhood, but a little bit of a flashback of Jules and her relationship with her parents when she was a teenager, so that way we could have seen more of a concrete picture of what the dynamic was with the mother. And another thing I really liked in Cougar Town was the Alzheimer's rep, which is another way that Jules's relationship with her dad is fleshed out, because he's diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the end of season 4, and then you just see how their relationship grows stronger throughout the rest of the show. And then in another episode, from the beginning of season 6, episode 2, Full Grown Boy. This is another way that the family dynamic is changing, because obviously her father is growing older, and she's really concerned about him doing the Civil War reenactments because of his advanced age, and he's worried like he's gonna either get injured by the gunshots or something, or just forget his lines for the reenactment or whatever. She basically doesn't want her dad to do the reenactments anymore, and that's because she's so afraid of the Alzheimer's diagnosis and the impact it has had on the family. She's also, my thinking is that she was also worried about him forgetting his lines, or forgetting like where he was supposed to go in the reenactment, and him getting injured. So that's how the Changing Family Dynamics serious issue is covered. Jules's clinginess to her son Travis is also very concerning, because I guess she's just afraid of him growing up and wants to hold on to him as much as he can, the picture of him being a little boy. But I really think it's weird that she sleeps with him in the same bed when he is 21 years old and she's in her 40s. That just comes off as really creepy to me, and I feel like that should have been expressed in therapy. So as I've mentioned before, as I just said, technically Cougar Town cannot be considered a spin-off of Friends, but there are several episodes where we notice throughout the course of watching this series that share similar plot lines to Friends. For example, as mentioned in a previous video, one episode that has a similar plot line to Friends is Season 3, Episode 2, A Mind of a Heart of Its Own. This is the episode where Jules is trying to pick her maid of honor between Ellie and Lori, and this compares to the episode of Friends season 7, episode 6, the one with the nap partners. As I mentioned before, I think Friends handled this plot line a lot better because of Ross and Joey auditioning Phoebe and Rachel to be Monica's maid of honor. Going back to the father-daughter relationship between Jules and her dad, Chick, I wanted to talk about 2 other episodes that highlight this dynamic very well. The first one I wanted to mention is Make It Better. This is from season 4. It's the 9th episode where Chick moves in with Jules as he recovers from an injury, and Jules ends up having a kidney stone, and she's afraid to admit that she needs help and being taken care of because she's been spending so much time taking care of her dad and helping him recover from his injury. So there's this really sweet scene at the end of the episode where they're in the hammock talking to each other about taking care of each other, and that's really sweet. Another example of the father-daughter relationship is in season 5, episode 11, Refugees. In this episode, Bobby's boat goes missing, so Jules and Bobby act as detectives to try to find out what happened to his boat. And as it turns out, the dad, Chick stole the boat to play a trick on Bobby. And at the very end of the episode, he makes a comment to Bobby about being happy for their marriage lasting so long and that they've been together for so long, and basically saying, I'm glad you guys are still married to each other after all this time. But Bobby then points out to him that they have been divorced for 10 years. And that's something I was also curious about. Like, what led to their divorce? Because obviously at the beginning of the show, they're divorced. And maybe it had something to do with the fact that Bobby was lazy and a drunk or something, or maybe he didn't want to find a job, and like Jules was really successful and she felt Bobby was holding her back, so that's why she divorced him. Like, that's just a theory I have as to why they got divorced. Like, that's something I also wish was better explained in addition to Jules's mom and how she died. But yeah, it's that scene at the end of season 5, episode 11, Refugees, is just very sad because Chick has obviously forgotten that his daughter and son-in-law have been divorced. And like, Jules starts to cry and she gives her dad a hug, and I wanted to reach through the screen and hug Courtney Cox because I felt really bad for her. And like, the thing that made this plotline in Cougar Town so relatable was, as I have mentioned before in previous videos, I have lost both of my grandmothers to Alzheimer's disease in 2014 and 2021, respectively. And I just really personally connected to this plotline, and I wanted to again thank Courtney Cox and the people who worked on Cougar Town for representing how families handle Alzheimer's so well. Bravo. So please watch the video on Matt's channel for our thoughts on the finale of Cougar Town and the comparisons we do to the Friends finale. So the next thing I wanted to talk about in this video is tier ranking the Backlist books for Reese's book club. So before I even heard about Reese's book club, I read a whole bunch of books that were in previous years of the book club, and I have reviewed a few of them previously on this channel. But I wanted to go through my tier ranking of them for this video. So, Gabby Reese posted a similar video where she did tier ranking, and she had really fancy graphics of her tier list. I just copied down the tiers and wrote them down in my notebook because I don't have any fancy graphics. I'm not that technologically skilled with YouTube, unfortunately. So I am just going to go through my rankings of these books and explain why I placed them where they did. So for her tier ranking, Gabby Reese picked Schitt's Creek's quotes to go with her tier ranking titles. So the first category of books that I wanted to talk about is Simply the Best. The first book, of course, is Daisy Jones and the Six. So I love this book, and I think it's really creative how it's all in interview format. It makes me think of that TV show that was on VH1 in the 2000s. For those of you who remember, it was called Behind the Music, where they interviewed different bands. And that's what this book made me think of. Matt and I are going to be talking about the book and the TV show in our comparisons video, so I don't want to talk too much about the book here, but I gave it 4.5 stars on Goodreads, and I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it yet, you should definitely read it. The next book in this category that I wanted to talk about today is Did You Hear What Happened to Kitty Carr? So this is a historical fiction book that's based on a famous actress who is being interviewed for a newspaper, either that or her granddaughter is interviewing her for a school project. I can't remember, but this book is pretty similar in plot to, another book by Taylor Jenkins Reid called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I really love. That book is really good. And that's what I liked about Did You Hear What Happened to Kitty Carr? The fact that it's a story about a famous celebrity who's being interviewed for a project, and you get to learn more about what it was like for her in Hollywood during the time she was on TV. The next three books are books that I have read recently. The first one is The Guest List, which I just read last week, actually. The Guest List is a thriller book by Lucy Foley that takes place in Scotland, and all of these people are there on an island for a wedding, and somebody at the wedding gets murdered. And I loved how all the plot twists keep twisting, and it kept me guessing on the edge of my seat the whole time. I gave The Guest List 4 stars, and my next Lucy Foley book is probably going to be The Paris Apartment. The next book I wanted to talk about is another book I just finished recently for my historical fiction TBR, and that book is called The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I gave this book 4.5 stars on Goodreads. I loved it. I have been on a kick of reading World War II centered books lately, so This book focuses on two sisters. One of them just wants to be quiet and like focus on her relationship with her husband and her kid. And the younger sister, she is really like anti-war, and she's a feminist, and she wants to like really fight against the Nazis and is all gung-ho about fighting the resistance of the Nazis. I couldn't really connect to any of these characters in any personal way. I guess with my disability rights activism that I do, I guess I could relate more to the younger sister. I really wish that the relationship between the two sisters had been better explored, because that's one thing I really like the best about Taylor Jenkins' Reid other book, Malibu Rising, that the relationship between the two sisters is really explored more. The next book that is in the Simply the Best ranking is True Biz. True Biz is set at a school for deaf people, and the reason why this book is in this ranking on the tier list is because I love the disability representation for the kids who are at the school for the deaf, and I love how there's multi-generational people dealing with deafness. I really hope that Reese Witherspoon adapts this movie for TV or a movie, because I would really love to see the representation for the deaf community in a movie, because there was another movie that won the Oscar a couple of years ago called Coda, which is about deaf people. So there just needs to be more representation for deaf actors. And I think True Biz, that's why I think True Biz would be good as a movie or TV series. The next tier ranking for this tier ranking list is I Love This Journey for Me. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Nig. And the other book that I read by her for this tier ranking is Our Missing Hearts. So, I will read what this is about. In Shaker Heights, a placid, progressive suburb of Cleveland, everything is planned, from the layout of the winding roads to the colors of the successful lives its residents will go on to lead. And no one embodies the spirit more than Elena Richardson, whose guiding principles is playing by the rules. Enter Mia Warren, the enigmatic artist and single mother who arrives in this idyllic bubble with her teenage daughter Pearl and rents a house from the Richardsons. Soon, Mia and Pearl become more than tenants. All four Richardson children are drawn to the mother-daughter pair, but Mia carries with her a mysterious past and disregard for the status quo that threatens to upend this carefully ordered community. When old family friends of the Richardsons attempt to adopt a Chinese-American baby, a custody battle erupts and dramatically divides the town and puts Mia and Elena on opposing sides. Suspicious of Mia and her motives, Elena is determined to uncover the secrets in Mia's past, but her obsession will come at unexpected and devastating costs. Little Fires Everywhere explores the weight of secrets, the nature of art and identity, and the ferocious pull of motherhood, and the danger of the believing following the rules can avert disaster. This book was really good, and again, I loved how the plot of the child custody battle kept twisting and turning. No spoilers here, because if you want to read this book, you should really read it. It's really good. And also, if you have seen a TV show of Little Fires Everywhere on, is it Netflix? I can't remember what streaming service it's on, but if you have seen Little Fires Everywhere TV show, leave a comment below and let me know what you think. The next book I wanted to talk about that's in this level of the tier ranking is also by Celeste Nig. I read it last year and I reviewed it in her previous video from last summer. It's called Our Missing Hearts, and it is it's a very emotional story about how a 12-year-old boy sets out on a journey to find his mother, who has been missing for a long time. And I just really loved the family dynamics between the father and the son in this book, and the journey that the son goes on to find his mother. So I will put a link in the description box for the video from last year where I reviewed Our Missing Hearts. I think I talked about it in my wrap-up for our top 23 books of 2023. The next book is a book I actually forgot on my bookcase, but it's a book I do own. It's called Outlawed by Anna North, and it was my book group's book discussion at Print Bookstore for July. So Outlawed is a queer queer romance between two cowgirls. And what I like the best about this movie is the found family between the two cowgirls and all of their friends. And if you have seen the movie Brokeback Mountain before, this is basically Brokeback Mountain, but with cowgirls in it. So if you like Brokeback Mountain, you should definitely read this book. I have never seen Brokeback Mountain, but I love this book, and I really want to see Brokeback Mountain, and I really want Reese Witherspoon to turn this book into a show, because I can just picture the dynamics between the two female leads, because from the clips that I've seen of Brokeback Mountain, Jake Gyllenhaal and the late Heath Ledger definitely had a lot of chemistry between each other. The next category in this tier ranking is called Kind Wishes, Warmest Regards. The first book in this tier ranking that I wanted to talk about is One Day in December by Josie Silver. I read this book last Christmas. It's not my favorite Christmas book. I felt that the romance in it was kind of predictable in a lot of ways, and I liked it, but as I just said, it's not one of my favorite Christmas romances. I would say that, I have to think of what other Christmas romances I've read besides this one. All I Want for Christmas is pretty good, by Maggie Knox. So I gave this book 3.5 stars on Goodreads. So that's pretty decent. The next book I wanted to talk about is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I read this book in May. It would have been ironic if I had read it in June, because June is in the title. But this is a second chance romance between two writers who dated when they were in high school, and they meet when they're older. And the main female protagonist is now a single mom, and she reconnects with this guy who was a friend of hers from childhood, who is also a writer. I don't want to spoil too much about the relationship, but I really liked their relationship dynamic. I thought it was cute. The next book I wanted to talk about is Tom Lake. I read this book in March, and I gave it between 2.5 to 3 stars. I couldn't connect to any of the characters, but the mother character in this book reminded me of Meryl Streep, which I guess makes sense because she's the actress who voices the audiobook, and I have heard that she does a great job narrating the audiobook. I like the setting of this book, but as I just said, I couldn't connect to any of the characters, so again, another 3-star read. The next book that I wanted to talk about is Where the Crawdads Sing. So this book also got 3 to 3.5 stars. The movie was pretty okay too. I gave that like 6 out of 10 on IMDb. Haley Pham reviewed this book in one of her past videos, and one thing I agree with that she said in her review is that the first 250 pages of this book had really slow pacing, but once you get past that, the story gets really good. So that's all I have to say about that. The final tier ranking for this tier list is Ew David. And these are the books that that didn't appeal to me at all, or that I DNF'd. The first book I wanted to talk about was Cassandra in Reverse. I read this in April, and this is about a girl who basically wants to go back in time to fix her mistakes. So it's kind of like The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, only with a girl who has autism. And I just didn't like how autism was represented in this book. I found Cassie to be a very unlikable main protagonist, and she reminded me way too much of Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, who I cannot stand. He is my least favorite character on that show because of how arrogant he is, and Cassie is equally as arrogant as Sheldon. The next book in this tier ranking is Romantic Comedy by Kirsten Sinfeld. I read this book in February as part of my romantic comedy list for Valentine's Day. This book is incredibly misnamed because it is not very romantic and it is not very funny. The first half of this book was good, but I had to stop reading it during the second half because the COVID-19 setting was too close to home for me during the pandemic isolation, and I just felt like it was too relatable almost. So I did like the relationship build-up between the two main characters. I just didn't like the fact that the second part of the book was set during COVID. The next book is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This is a dark academia book that I read back in the springtime. I would reread it again for my dark academia TBR for September and October, but I could not get into this book. I found the pacing to be slow. I loved the setting of the haunted house, but that's about the only thing that I liked. I didn't find any of the characters to be likable or relatable, and I just thought the plot dragged on and was too boring. So I DNF'd that book at page 150. The next book I wanted to talk about was actually a book I got out of the library a couple of days ago but had to DNF. This book is called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. It is a thriller book by Gillian McAllister, and it has a lot of... So it's a murder mystery. And in this murder mystery, this woman catches her son murdering somebody, and I think I just had a hard time getting engaged in this story and trying to figure out what led the son to kill this other guy. And I just found the plot to be a bit unbelievable, and there were too many flashbacks that really took me out of the narrative. And finally, the last book I wanted to talk about was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This book was a Goodreads Choice Awards winner last year, and I don't understand the appeal to it. It is about a girl who's a writer. Her name is June, and she's white, and she has a friend who is Asian. They're both authors. The main character, June, she's not doing so good in her career. The Asian author, Athena, she is really doing well in her career, and the main character is kind of jealous of her friend because she's more successful than her. The Asian girl, Athena, dies unexpectedly because she chokes on a pancake, and basically June takes over finishing her friend's manuscript, but she doesn't give her friend any credit for the story that she wrote. She just takes over credit for it. And I had to stop reading this book because I did not like the way that June treated the death of her friend. She should have not stolen her friend's manuscript and published it under her own name. She should have talked to her family about it, like talked to her friend's family about publishing it, and they could have like published it together and just put like a author's note at the beginning saying that before the publication of this book, the author died unexpectedly and we decided to publish this book in her honor. I thought it was underhanded how June stole Athena's manuscript and published it under her name. And it was unethical, actually. So, the next part of my tier ranking for Reese's book club will be out at the end of November when I do my fall wrap-up video, because I will be wrapping up all of the book club picks that I have read from January to November. And I will go into more detail about the most fun we ever had and where that fits in on my ranking. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for all your support. Before I sign off, though, in the video that Matt and I made, we talk a lot about how substance use disorder is highlighted really well in Daisy Jones and the Six, and in other pieces of media we have been consuming since last year when Matthew Perry died. As people know, I have been having a really hard time with Matthew Perry's death because Chandler was my favorite character on Friends. And as a PSA, I wanted to encourage people to honor Matthew Perry's death by watching Friends. I mean, if you were never into it when it was originally aired, I understand. But the co-director of Friends, Marta Coffin, said in an interview that 2 ways you can remember Matthew Perry, or Matty as his friends referred to him as, is by watching Friends and remembering how funny he was, or B, donating to substance use disorder clinics in your area for fundraising, for advocacy services for people who have this disease. And I encourage you to do both things. I mean, I know that my viewers, specifically my family members who are viewers of my videos, do not particularly like Friends. But even if you were not into it when it was originally airing, I highly recommend that you check it out anyway. If not for the dynamics of the whole cast, just for how funny he was, to get an idea of where I have been coming from in my reviews. And also, as I said, donate what you can to local substance use disorder clinics in your area, or donate to his foundation that his family has set up for him. A link to the Matthew Perry Foundation will be in the description of this video and also in the description of the video that I make with Matt. So thank you for tuning in and have a good week. My next video, which will be reading updates for my fall TBR, will be out at the end of next week. So thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.